Welcome back. Inauguration Day at the Wisconsin Capitol this week saw almost a quarter of the assembly filled with brand new faces. And then Governor Evers, of course, reelected, and 7 new senators joined the Senate. And another Madison senator got a big promotion. Our political reporter, Will Kenneally, has been there a lot of the week and joins us next. What was the mood in the Capitol like throughout Inauguration Day?
It's pretty vibrant, right? I mean, it's always, all of the reporters, we done our best, right? You have bands, music, choirs coming in from all different schools around the state. So it's a pretty spirited mood up there. And also, too, especially this year, it's a renewed sense of bipartisanship, right? All the legislators are trying to kind of start fresh with this new year after 4 kind of tenuous past years with Governor Evers.
Which tees us up well to hear from 2 of the party, or the 2 party leaders in the Senate, both of them kind of giving some of their insight into the coming session. Let's take a listen to them next.
I've already met with the governor, so that's a promising start to the session. So we'll see how the session works going forward. I was just a little disappointed that it seemed very partisan on Inauguration Day, but we have an entire session to work on things, and hopefully we can put a budget on his desk that he signs again.
I'm hoping that people heard us as legislators on both sides of the aisle, and the governor as well, express all of our intent to really work with one another.
So that first was Senator Devin LeMahieu, obviously Republican Party leader in the Senate. So he has this idea of a partisan speech from the governor, right? What does he mean by that?
So he didn't offer too many specifics, but I think the gist that he was getting at is Evers talked a lot about the sense of a frayed sense of democracy, right? He talked about that we need to collectively as a state patch together kind of these frayed seams. And I think that in Evers' case was really a reaction to kind of the Trump years and some Trumpism that we saw in Wisconsin here. Obviously, he beat the Trump-backed Republican candidate for governor, Tim Michels. So I think he's trying to say, from our state, from our perspective, we need to kind of move on from here. LeMahieu, of course, pushing back and saying, hey, we need to kind of renew a sense of collaboration here in the state capitol.
So where does that leave our governor and our party leaders specifically in terms of what priorities you think they're going to tackle in this coming legislative session?
So the big thing here is we have this enormous record-setting state budget surplus, right? More than $6.5 million.
I heard $7 billion this week as well.
Close.
It's obviously a changing number.
Yes, exactly. And so that will be kind of in the books by the end of the fiscal year at the end of this next June here. So the state gets to kind of figure out how it wants to spend it down. We've heard a lot of tax cuts from Republicans. Obviously, you know, state has drawn up too much tax revenue from its taxpayers. We need to give it back. Governor, we heard this speech, interestingly enough, say, yes, let's extend some tax breaks here. Republicans want to do it more in what's called a flat tax, so that's lowering the tax rate on the highest income earners so everybody pays the same rate. Evers says he wants to do it a little bit more targeted to a middle-class Wisconsinite, whatever that might be. We'll see more, certainly, from the budget draft that he provides to us.
I think that will be incredibly interesting, right? We saw, for example, in the last budget session where, you know, Evers writes up a big draft, and then the Republicans come in and they create their own tax cut that then we saw in the last election Governor Evers take credit for in some ways, which then creates this whole whose credit is this tax cut for? So I think that'll be pretty interesting in how that shakes out this coming session.
Yes, exactly. And then Evers, too, he gets to do a little bit of a rewrite, too, especially with anything where it's an expenditure. He gets to do that line item veto. It's a little bit more narrowly tailored now where he can't, like, cross out certain letters and rewrite words, but he does have some broad power to kind of tweak the Republican budget. It'll be interesting negotiations going forward until we hit that budget process in May, and then, of course, when the budget gets passed.
So the elephant in the room here, kind of this big topic that has dominated the elections and will likely dominate also this coming legislative session, abortion, right? So we have this 1849 ban on abortion. There's been talk of, do we include rape, incest exceptions? Where do you think we go forward in this session on that?
So this was the fascinating thing for me. That was the one thing that I would have thought I would have heard more from Evers' inaugural address here. It's a big campaign promise that he's pitching himself as a firewall for Democrats in Wisconsin to be that kind of break for Republicans having unified control of government and being able to kind of tweak that Wisconsin law as it sees fit. We didn't hear a ton. He did allude to it, certainly, and I don't know if that's kind of what he was getting at with the frayed sense of democracy either. But really where that goes from now is he will have to work with Republicans in the legislature, obviously, purple state divided government, to see if we're going to extend any exceptions for rape or incest into the state law. In the past, he says that's just a non-starter for him. It doesn't go far enough. It still keeps that 1849 law on the books. So he wants to see more something to a full repeal. What we have right now, though, is a huge attention that then gets turned to this April Supreme Court race, where we could see a challenge to that law perhaps find a favorable court if liberals flip the Patience-Roggensack seat and take essentially kind of 4.5 seats on the Supreme Court there.
Very high stakes there. It's a new year. It's a new start. A 2023 that will likely see you in the press room at the Capitol quite a bit for possibly long hours and late into the night.
Yes, that's what we love.
All right, so coming up next, we have a third candidate in the Madison mayoral race. You can hear from him right after the break.